This week in games, more layoffs. Neil Druckmann says don't bet on The Last of Us Part 3, and GTA 6 could cost $100. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 242. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Howdy from our state, which I will not say what it is.
Been said so many times on camera.
We live in Texas.
There
howdy
you
from
go.
Texas. There we go. I
It's,
kind of gave it away with the howdy.
Howdy.
If I didn't.
It's awful here. Don't move here. Hey, Connor, how's your week been?
It's been good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
It's been good.
Very nice.
Though, I've done this occasionally on the podcast where I all of a sudden get political. I only do it for certain things.
There we go.
Yes. Well, most recently, it's my week's been good. My day-to-day life is very often good. But we now are having the beginning of the shutting down of free speech. As most recently, I don't know if you heard, there was it's once again, of course, connected to Palestine and Israel. But basically, it was a green card. I can't remember his fucking name. I think it was Muhammad. But he was here on a green card, so he was here completely legally. And because he had been at pro-Palestine protests at Columbia, I think specifically, ICE went to his place to arrest him. And they had gone there with the understanding that he was on a visa. Like I said, he was not on a visa, but a green card, which is much more substantiated. And, even though they were there to get rid of a guy who was there on a visa, though that fundamental aspect of it changed, they still arrested him on the fly, decided that, well, we're just going to bring him in and, get him out of the country anyway. And of course, it's been paraded by Trump as this massive success of fighting anti-Semitism and fighting back against terrorism and whatnot, when all he did was take some guy who, by every single account, didn't do anything actually bad, just exercised his right to free speech, which is a given right in our country, and now he's being disappeared. We don't even know where he is. He had an 8-month pregnant wife who went to the facility he was supposed to be being kept at. He's not there. So we don't know where this guy is right now. He's getting deported, apparently, but people have been referring to him as being disappeared, which apparently was something that very much happened in Latin American countries, which South American countries, it would be more apt to say, even though it includes Central America by including Latin America. Point was, the U.S. fucked that region up a lot, and a lot of shutdown of free speech in those countries happened, and now you're seeing, probably the most egregious example of it happen now. And they're raring up to do it even more so to protesters, specifically at college campuses, of just taking them away. Despite the fact that they're just doing something that is, once again, a right. And it's not differentiated based off whether you have a green card or whether you are a U.S. citizen. It's just an unalienable right that's being taken away. Set up by the Biden administration, specifically at Columbia protests, where he was kind of pushing for these people to be shut down anyway. But all it's done now is opened up the way for even more egregious breaches of free speech. And so it's dark for what's coming, because this is not going to be the first time or the last time. And if they could do it to someone with a green card, they might start doing it to somebody who's a natural-born U.S. citizen. So it's dark, especially on this podcast where we can say whatever we want, but now we're entering into the realm of maybe that's not the case anymore. So we'll see how that progresses in the Supreme Court, but that's a dark cloud, as if there wasn't already a dark cloud hanging over this country, and by extension, the world. If we're able to do things in other countries, and even our own citizens can't fight back against it. Messed up times. Yeah. Be aware. Your rights are going to be taken away just because they want to do so. They. You know who they mean when I say they, right? The Trump administration. Rich people, those kinds.
So anyways, we're here to talk about video games.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything.
Absolutely, Connor. Thank you for that. Because you're showing. I've not heard this story, so that's fascinating. And horrifying.
Yes.
But anyways, this is the Two Penny Gamescast, where each week me and Connor come to you with the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, 2 pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them.
Video game time!
You can catch the show being recorded live every Monday afternoon, twitch.tv/2pennygames, or every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice.
Also on Twitch, which You could join in the chat, like Mikhail Tuyu.
Shout out to that Twitch chatter. And make sure you follow us over on all of our social medias. Links are in the description down below. But Connor, I think we should just go ahead and jump right into it and get into our first topic of the day. I'm going to go ahead. I'm taking this one. Eat my nuts, Connor. We didn't talk about it like we should have, but, I'm taking it. Layoff trend continues across multiple game studios. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, most of our stories that we write, or most of the stories that we read on this podcast, you can actually read yourself because our own Connor Elliott wrote them.
Yeah.
And so if you follow us over at TwoPennyGamesNews.substack.com, a link is in the description down below. You can read all of our articles yourself, except with our last story of the day. We're gonna get to that in a bit. But developers of the Until Dawn remake Ballistic Moon support team PlayStation Visual Arts and PlayStation Studios Malaysia all underwent layoffs this past week as part of an ongoing issue that's plagued the gaming industry over the last couple of years. Insider Gaming reports that Ballistic Moon is effectively closed following layoffs that reduced the team's size to only include its founders and a few remaining developers. The remake was heavily criticized for coming too soon and visually making the game less appealing than the original. True Trophies estimates the debut player count to be lower than the massive failure of live service title Concord, with Until Dawn having 28.6 fewer players, 28.6% fewer players. PlayStation Studios Visual Arts similarly cut an unknown number of their workforce, with the studio's former associate project manager, Abby Lemaster, currently Riot Games' senior lead producer, commenting on the layoffs. Quote, "The layoffs today hit hard," said Lemaster. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Lemaster? Sure. That's
Lemaster.
Lemaster.
Yeah. I wonder what her nickname...
That sounds super racist.
No, that's the thing. Well, first of all, it sounded French. Second of all, you basically have a foot in the door to the BDSM community. Your name is Lemaster? Like, that's your name?
That was the most wild jump you could have made there.
It's not
Colin.
wild. Because it's all about...
That was insane. That was fucking wild.
The BDSM community.
How did you get there from what we were talking about?
Because her name's Lemaster. Lemaster, like the Lemaster, like you're a French nobleman. You have your.
Lemaster said, "Quote: PSVA let go of developers with decades of subject matter expertise, talent that will be extraordinarily difficult to recoup. The industry can be unpredictable, but the skill, experience, and passion of the people I worked with at PSVA are undeniable." The San Diego-based studio assisted in the production of Sony and third-party developer titles through the creation of art and animation, as well as provided technical support across various entertainment mediums. Overseas, the PlayStation office in Malaysia laid off around 20 staff members to reduce the workforce, according to NMIA Gaming, with focus directed at the art team specifically. Senior project manager Johan Effendi Mafour took to LinkedIn to advertise his skills and announce his forced departure from the studio, with Mafour being the only known casualty from the layoffs at this time.
So it's just a continuation of what we've been seeing for a while now. This is just, a lot of the criticisms has come to COVID, of course, for basically making it to where everybody thought, well, since everyone was home playing video games, that was going to be a trend that continued, but of course it fell off and it messed up people's expectations. We'll talk about it later with one of the other stories we're covering, but it's also kind of the dissonance between management and their goals and the creative team and their goals. Maybe not so much with this one, but certainly with the story we covered last week with the closure of Warner Bros. Studios, Monolith Studios.
The acquisition of what is now Rockstar Australia? Rockstar...
Yes, it's now Rockstar Australia.
Yeah.
It was Player Special Games. I
couldn't tell you what the original name was.
Yeah, I can't either. But, yeah, this is just disappointing. And Sony's been pretty bad at it overall, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Like comparative to everybody else. Of course, it's been just... You could basically point your finger at any company and say, you did layoffs, and You're probably right.
Six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. All the major publishers are doing it. All the major publishers are continuing. We saw reports this week as well as EA, another major publisher, canceling another Respawn game. Respawn, kind of EA's golden goose right now, and their last 3 titles that they've been working on have all been shelved, and that's super, super unfortunate. There was one in the early processes of development, and that has now been canceled, is what the reports are saying. And the hits keep coming, and they just keep coming, and they just keep this isn't gonna stop anytime soon, and that's super unfortunate. I'm hoping that we're past the era of 1,500 people laid off today, or several thousands laid off today. Like, I'm hoping we're past that era, and now we're just kind of putting band-aids on the smaller cuts is what I'm hoping is happening. It's unfortunate that this team that worked on the Until Dawn remake has just entirely been pretty much cut off. It's only I think they're just doing like sort of the polite thing with the founders and probably some key developer heads of just being like, all right, well, like, I mean, you don't have a job anymore, but we're not going to lay you off. So, like, just find a graceful way out, please. Or something like that. Or you get to be on payroll until you find another job type scenario or something happening there. And that's unfortunate. I didn't play the Until Dawn remake. It didn't seem like it was widely acclaimed like the original was, or even like as something that people really wanted. So, the writing was on the wall for me about that one. Doesn't make it any less frustrating and heartbreaking and stuff. And then, of course, PlayStation Visual Arts, that's a studio that, just kind of helps everybody out. That's one thing that you don't really hear about as often as you should from a mainstream perspective, is the amount of support studios, which is where a large percentage of the workforce are. These are studios where developers are finding their foots in the door, or figuring out how to build relations and network so that they can get into the bigger studios and land jobs at, land their dream jobs of working on a Last of Us game, or working on a Halo game, et cetera, and so for, these people who are, focused on creating art assets and animations for studios for these bigger budget games, for them to go, like, we are going to see an inevitable decline, because this is not the first support studio that's faced these problems. We're going to see an inevitable decline in perceived quality of a video game, right? The high level of fidelity that I think gamers are used to these days. I don't see how it can be kept up. Like, I don't see how. I don't know when that decline is going to start, whether it's going to be with titles as imminent as, say, like a Ghost of Yotei, or even like a Grand Theft Auto 6 or anything like that. Death Stranding 2 just got a release date this week. Are we going to see anything like that? Doesn't look like it. That game looks beautiful. But is Intergalactic going to be able to keep it up? Or is the next Guerrilla game, Horizon 3, going to have as much fidelity as we saw in Forbidden West, which it was highly, highly praised for? Like, is it going to be there? I don't know. My bet is, I think we as consumers should just prepare for video games to take a perceivable step backwards in technology. Now, I've also been the proponent of, like, we should just willingly take a step back anyways, because I think the arms race of technical fidelity and how good do things look, how pretty do things look, has actually been to the detriment of actual game design. And video games have become less interesting as we've gone along. That's not like a blanket statement, like, I think it's just kind of like case by case scenario. Of course, there are always games that come out and have cool mechanics and make us go, oh wow, this is new, this is innovative, this is dope. Or there's a game that of smaller consequence that still looks beautiful, but like just mechanic, like lays its laurels on its mechanics. Returnal comes to mind from what is that studio called? Housemarque. From Housemarque's studio. Returnal, one of my favorite games of 2021, and very, very excited for their new game coming out next year.
Saros.
Yeah, Saros. This is where we are. It doesn't seem like there's any way out of it except through the hard way. At least no realistic way out except for the hard way. And so, it's just a matter of time before the industry takes enough beatings to where it can stop, and it's just all right, we're done. Now we can build back up, and hopefully build in a smarter way, in a less risky way, and just in a more responsible way from leadership. Responsibility is where we've really gone astray, and the leaders of this industry should really be held to the fire even more than they are right now.
Which they aren't even really.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a couple of CEO oustings or things happening, some movement around in leadership commands and so forth, but it almost feels like we just need to wipe it and have a clean slate. And I mean, granted, PlayStation has a new head, so we've yet to see the effects of that. Xbox is seemingly settling into their roles now after their restructure from the Activision Blizzard reconstruction. Square Enix seems to be trying to focus their efforts and put out more focused titles, and have the focus be on quality, not quantity. And it just kind of sort of goes across the industry. You just see this shift in tactics from everybody of going, oh, this is the wrong path and we're all getting punished for it. We need to change. As far as I can tell, I think Capcom's the only major publisher that hasn't really tripped and fallen into trouble like this. I don't want to speak super definitively. I think they've had layoffs somewhere, but it's been worldwide. But I haven't seen major studio closures from Capcom. I mean, their last 5, 6, 7 years have been all wildly successful, especially now with the raging success of Monster Hunter Wilds that we're seeing.
I remember a story of, I don't know if it was them or Sega, but they increased their workers' salaries.
That was a Sega thing.
It might have been. Let me see. But yeah.
And even if it was on a smaller scale. It wasn't all of Sega, because Sega's had some massive layoffs and I think a studio closure or two as well. It's so hard to keep track because we just keep getting it, week after week after week.
They did, increasing all salaries
Sega?
by around Capcom.
Capcom.
By around 5%, 28% rise for new graduate hires, which I'm assuming So they did it. They seem to be doing well in this landscape.
Resident Evil's on a hot streak. Monster Hunter's bigger than it's ever been. Street Fighter 6 was very, very widely accepted and critically acclaimed. Capcom's been on a hot streak lately.
Yep.
And
I
don't feel like we've said I don't feel like we've talked about the success of Capcom enough in these dire times. It's important to highlight teams that are perceivably doing it right. At least up to this moment, as far as I can tell, they're doing it right.
Yes, by all accounts.
And Nintendo, of course, doing it well. But saying Nintendo's doing the right thing is like saying gravity is still working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wii U era aside. Moving on, topic number 2. This is going to be, Connor, your first penny of the day. So whenever you're ready, friend, go ahead and take it away.
Maybe there is an avenue to prevent us from having all these studios closing. Maybe we just need to raise the price of games. Everyone like that?
Hey!
How much, though? Grand Theft Auto 6 predicted to sell at $100 price tag. Managing Director of Equity Research at Wedbush Securities, Michael Pachter, predicts that the upcoming Grand Theft Auto 6 will cost, quote, $100 or more, end quote, following a distributed research note from the company. Video Game Chronicles' Tom Ivan reports on the content of the note, with Pachter writing, quote, "We think the company has plans to sell the game at a previously unheard of price point, and suspect that management can offer consumers an incentive to pay $100 or more per unit by rewarding them with large amounts of in-game currency to be spent in GTA Online," end quote. Continuing the quote, "There is a precedent for integrating an online game experience with a premium game, as Activision did with both Call of Duty Warzone and Call of Duty mobile content prior to the release of its annual Call of Duty premium installment," continues Pachter. In Activision's case, the integration led to a 40% increase in sales of Call of Duty Premium. In Take-Two's case, we think a successful integration of GTA Online and GTA 6 can lead to a $100 price point for the premium game. CEO Matthew Ball of holding company Epilion released a presentation on the state of the gaming industry for the year of 2025, in which he claims, quote, "Game makers hope," end quote, GTA 6 will come at a higher price tag to push for a new industry standard on pricing, similar to an effect NBA 2K21 had when it became the first game to cost $70. Ball goes on to bring up the fact that the games nominally cost less than they had decades prior as a justification for a desired price hike. There are some charts here. Go read that if you want to see them from his report. Rumors in 2023 originating from GTA YouTuber Inter indicated that GTA 6 will be the most expensive game ever created. Estimates ranged anywhere from $1 billion to $2 billion, and if true, would be partly used to justify a substantial price increase. This has gotten two thoughts online that I've seen. The, I think, more common response, which is, I'm not going to pay $100 for a video game, and then the GTA guys coming out and sucking schlong, basically. Which is pretty expected. Bringing it down to realistic perspective on this issue, probably not going to do that. In fact, I would bet they're not going to increase it at all.
I would be shocked if the GTA 6 came out base price $100.
Yes.
I would be shocked. Now, I do expect there to be different tiers, different SKUs of GTA 6 here.
There always was with every
Here's
game.
An $80 version. You get 10,000 GTA 6 or GTA Online bucks, and you get like a card to start with the campaign or something like that, right?
You're getting season pass.
Yeah, a season pass edition where you get the first year of content drops for free, or you get different outfits and skins for the characters to play as, this, that, and the third, or here's a $120 version. You get an apartment off the rip in GTA Online or something like that.
And everything you're saying is going to be achievable, possibly with real currency as well as in-game currency within GTA 6. So, like, those kinds of features are where they're expecting to possibly make some of their money, potentially having their own, economy based around.
What are you saying?
Well, they were saying that they could incentivize, because they were saying it here, in-game purchases beyond just increasing the price to $100. I might be confusing it with...
Are you saying they're just going to microtransaction us to death?
Well, they're certainly going to microtransaction.
Yes, they're going to sell us shark cards again. Yeah,
exactly.
And people will buy them, and they will make billions off of that.
So the idea that they need to raise this at $100 because it would justify the cost of production and it would, make the money, they don't need to do that. And so they're going to make money hand over foot just off the base sale alone, let alone how much they're going to be doing over the years.
Now, I fully don't believe. I think all of this talk is hyperbolic. I think everybody is just wrapped up in the inflation of everything. And maybe is Rockstar American or Canadian?
It should be American.
I believe it's American. So unless some tariff stuff is happening with the current trade war that America and Canada are entering, if production happens that way or something, I don't think it does, but it might through China.
I think the only worry for that is tech as opposed to games themselves.
Well, of a physical purchase of a disc, if we're manufacturing discs in China, shipping them over here or any other country,
Yes, I was seeing a report that's going to be physical game sales are going to be hit by the tariffs. So that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's a dangerous precedent to put us at $100. There are very few games that could do this. I do believe Grand Theft Auto 6 is one of those few that could do that, and it would widely be deemed acceptable. Let's lay our cards out on the table here, Connor. If GTA 6 is base edition $100, I'm still buying it. Mm-hmm. It's going to hurt my wallet. I'm not going to like it, but I'm still doing it. I assume you would be the same. No?
Not me.
You're a fucking psychopath.
You have to realize...
It's the game of the goddamn generation.
It's a GTA game, and basically every GTA game I play, I come away saying, people like it that much?
Yeah.
It's probably one of, in my mind, the more overrated games out there. But of course, that doesn't matter when you're making tons and tons of money.
I think Rockstar games are Rockstar games. Now, I across the board think Rockstar games are overrated, but they're still really fucking good.
And that's the thing. That, in addition to the fact it's GTA, and you already have tons of people who have ever since 2013, when the GTA 5 come out,
2013,
have been hankering for more GTA.
Yeah,
and people have theorized to the moon about what things you're going to be able to do there. So the hype is behind it, and you're going to make money on base sales, like I was saying earlier, and all the people that are going to spend money on the game internally. It really does seem like you'd be, and we talked about it a little bit last night, it'd just be shooting yourself more in the foot from those that aren't going to buy it on day one because it's $100, as opposed to those that still would if it was $70.
Now, I'm sure there's number crunchers that they've got over at Take-Two that are saying, well, I mean, yes, we will lose X percentage of players who will not buy the game day one, but the $30 increase from the other percentage who are still buying it makes up for it, and we're still gaining way more profit than we would have if we stay at 70. Like, that's totally true and possible. I think you can achieve that same effect just by charging us $100 and giving us some fake in-game rewards that really aren't going to cost you that much, because you're still going to make billions off of the shark cards and the microtransactions. And if they choose to do DLC expansions and paid content further on down the line, you're shaking your head like that's an obvious thing to happen. They haven't done it for their last two major games of paid content outside of shark cards. 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, there's no paid for DLC in those games.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see. Yeah, but I mean, you had also talked about how possibly narrative expansions, which would probably entail money.
They're possible, but again, they haven't done it in over a decade.
But GTA 6 is clearly a game they're going to be investing a lot of time into it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we see them coming out with a new game, but rather they would come out with that kind of single-player experience.
Maybe. I would bet no, but it's certainly possible. I would want that personally.
Yeah.
And I see the logic of it, of like, hey, we're going to coast on GTA 6 for the next 15 years. So let's, instead of putting more money into another project or another Red Dead Redemption or a new IP even, let's, have a small team over here produce content that can be made with assets that have already been created, and so we can get it out for the cheap and then charge people $30-$40 a pop for that. Like, all of that's possible and so forth. Connor, do you believe GTA 6 will come out at $100?
No. I think they'll come out with a $100 version, like you were saying earlier, but every game
I think there's going to be a $140 version or $150, $60, know?
They can do any number of collection packages they want.
Yeah.
And again, there's going to be, because it's GTA, more than any other title, people will buy it.
People will buy it.
And so, but then again, they will probably make more money if they do charge $100. So it comes into the question of, are they just going to do it because they want to make money? Is that what they're going to prioritize? Or are they just going to be a bit more grounded with it and just say, games are $70. We just had a price increase not that long ago. We're fine. Let's keep it there. And I think it definitely would hurt the goodwill of Rockstar if they do release it at 100. To a way that it severely impacts them, probably not.
Yeah, I don't see Rockstar as a greedy company. Like,
yeah, I know. Neither do I.
No, it exists. You don't get to that level of wealth without being greedy, right? But I don't think the perception of them is greedy, and I think that's because they keep the quality high, and for the most part, like, the games come out very polished.
Yeah.
So like, I just don't see it, and again, like, I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 came out at $60, so they haven't even capitalized on the price increase that we've gotten this generation. So like, they're already gonna get more profit off of GTA 6 than they would have last generation or in their last couple of titles. And I'll remind you, ladies and gentlemen, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the most profitable entertainment property of all time. It's just going to be. Like, it's gonna make a lot of money. It seems ridiculous to even risk it, especially when times are so tumultuous, both in the gaming industry and just in the world political landscape. Like, it seems ridiculous to me to charge that amount of money for a video game right now. And setting a precedent of video games costing $100 a pop is dangerous. And I do believe that's asking too much for any video game. Not any video game, but it's too much to be the standard.
It is, yeah. And those, NBA was the game that first rose to $70. It didn't need to. And so those kinds of companies, if they do set that precedent, even if they don't go to $100, I could see them saying, well, we could do it to $80 now. We could do it to $85 or something.
Yeah, a $30 jump is crazy.
Yeah.
I don't see how you can justify that. An $80 thing, like, we can have that. That's a little bit more realistic to me, of an $80 price tag on GTA 6. I would believe that. Maybe even like an 85, I could believe that. That would still make me go, ugh, why? Yeah. You don't need to. But I could see that potential future happening. But a $30 jump? No way.
We'll see.
I don't believe this game cost $1 billion to make. Fucking how?
I could see it, dude.
How?
I don't fucking know.
They just put out. You mean to tell me they put out Red Dead Redemption 2? I don't know the budget. Look up the budget of Red Dead Redemption 2. But they put that game out for probably in the realm of $400 million, and then you're gonna need another 600 after that for GTA 6.
Tavin,
And GTA 6 has not been in development since 5 came out.
can you fly a jet in Red Dead Redemption 2?
No.
Across a giant map?
No, but you know where you can? In GTA 5.
But this is
and you know how much that game cost? Not $1 billion.
This is new technology, Tavin. We just talked 2 weeks ago now, before they were shut down, Monolith Studios, that they had already spent $100 million on the Wonder Woman game when we saw a reveal trailer.
That makes sense to me. It's a major AAA studio backed by one of the biggest publishers in the game. And they had been working on that game for... that was announced at the 2021 Game Awards. So 3-4 years of development. Yeah, $100 million makes sense for that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
how much was Red Dead Redemption 2?
This is all estimation, so we don't know. But for the development budget, anywhere from $170 to $240 million. Marketing between $200 million and $300 million.
Marketing typically doubles that thing, right?
And so the lowest estimate is $370 million. Highest is $540 million.
Such a range.
Yeah, right.
GTA 6 did not cost $1 billion to make.
We'll see. I want to know. I really want to know.
There's no way.
I think it's less likely than not. It's more likely to not have been that much than it is to. But there is, with how much technology is advanced and with how much they clearly want to set themselves up for a game that's going to last, as you said, 16 years. That's reasonable. If I've said it, I think, twice today, but I'll say it again. Technology is getting to a point where you're not going to be able to have as great of leaps as you used to, and so it's much better just to build off what you have. And GTA 6 is going to be the most advanced game we've probably seen ever. Even if it's not $1 billion.
Yeah, I also think like in the wake of a Fortnite and a Call of Duty Warzone, they produce new grand maps. Every year, every other year, there's a new map to go. An entirely new map to jump into with Fortnite or jump into with Warzone, or they alter maps heavily, throughout the time or whatever. I think it's entirely possible that GTA 6, the map you get of where are we going in that game? Miami City?
I think it's Liberty.
Vice City?
Yeah, I think it's Vice City.
Something like that, whatever.
Where is it again?
I think it's entirely possible that in 3 to 4 years post-launch, you get a new map for GTA 6, and it's probably just for multiplayer, but maybe it comes with a single-player story as well. And it's a new map for players to play around in and do things in, and it's got new game modes and new vehicles and buildings and environments and whatever. Like, I could totally see GTA 6 starting as one game and ending as 3 or 4 games.
I mean, as it stands, I had forgotten about this. It's in a fictional place in Florida called Leonida, and it includes Vice City. So,
it's going to be bigger than that. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. Why not have both, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, GTA 5 was Los Santos, which we had seen previously in the franchise, right? Or am I wrong?
I think you had something similar with San Andreas, like partly.
Okay.
That would make sense.
That would make sense, right? I don't know. I don't know the lineage of these games well enough to tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the eventual production budget would be in the billions of dollars.
Undoubtedly.
But but not in 2026 when this game comes out,
But how long has this been in development now that because we started hearing...
I mean, I would argue it was in pre-development as Red Dead Redemption 2 was ramping up and getting close to its release date, and then when RDR2 wrapped up, they went all hands on deck for 6. So let's say, when did Red Dead Redemption 2 came out? 2018. Let's say they started production on GTA 6 in, probably 2017, 2016, maybe. It doesn't make any sense to me. And with the amount of content that GTA 5 was getting back in the day, it doesn't make sense to me that they started on anything else until at least I'm going to say 17. That's me not knowing anything really, but just kind of taking guess on timelines and how these things evolved, it just doesn't make sense to me. The number of $1 billion and even approaching $2 billion baffles me. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, you should be fired just for letting it get to that number. Like, that's ridiculous. With where video games are at right now. For $1 billion, GTA 6 better have, like, a full-fledged, like, sex simulator in it or something. Like
That'd be cool.
or like, a way that...
Like,
You're such a gooner.
Which is funny, because I'm not even. I don't play Zenless Zone Zero. I don't even play it.
Where did that game come from?
Have you seen the ads and anything for that game?
No.
Jesus Christ. It is as sexualized as you can make it and not being... No, it's far away from a porno, but it's very sexualized.
Well, and here, let me just wrap with this. GTA 6 can get away with being $100, but the public isn't ready for $100 video games.
Yeah.
Not by a long shot.
Not according to the analysts.
Moving on, Connor, to your fight, and those analysts are being crazy. Like, they're like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, there just doesn't need to be a thing. Anyways.
We'll find out when GTA 6 comes out this year.
Nope.
It's coming out. They said it.
We are in mid-March, and we know nothing about Grand Theft Auto 6. No trailers, no gameplay breakdowns, no release windows other than the year. We know nothing about this game.
But here's the problem. We just had the Death Stranding 2 trailer.
Yeah.
It released.
We knew way more about Death Stranding.
We did, but we couldn't guess that it was going to come out in, 4 months from here?
I could have made a guess of anywhere from June to October.
So now you say it. I wonder what changed. Found out.
Honestly, I probably would have shot closer to August, but sure, June. Yeah, why not? Because we had a bunch of dumb shit being released by Kojima and Kojima Productions of like the weird photo mode shit that you can do where all the actresses pose for you and do little cute poses and stuff. It's very strange. And all of that. Like, we had seen gameplay. We're not seeing gameplay of 6. We're not even getting story trailers of 6. We barely know the names of the 2 main characters.
Because it's GTA. What do they need to do to get you on that game?
Connor, it is going to be the biggest game of all time. They're going to market the shit out of it.
I know. But they can maybe cut down on that by just doing it in a couple months before the game comes out.
Do you remember all of the weird marketing hype lead up just to get the Avengers Endgame title? Just to know that it was called Endgame? It was like a huge fucking thing.
Well, the difference is that it didn't cost $1 billion to make. $2 billion even, which is what GTA 6 cost to make, because that's the estimate.
Moving on, topic number 3, Connor, your second penny of the day. Go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Yes, indeed. I am not writing time codes. I am simply looking at my phone. Game developer Rebellion's CEO on avoiding layoffs and backing Larian Studios, Sven Vinke. Rebellion Development's CEO Jason Kingsley discussed the video game industry with PC Gamer, attributing his company's lack of layoffs to luck and investing in games smaller in cost and size. Quote, I think there's always a little bit of luck involved, Kingsley said regarding circumventing layoffs. I think we control our budgets quite carefully. We have substantial budgets in terms of millions and millions of pounds, but we don't have hundreds of millions of pounds. We try to make it that we can make a really good game, and it has a very decent chance of making a profit. And that's really what it comes down to, end quote. Set to release Atomfall this March, Rebellion isn't known for its sprawling titles, as their key franchise, Sniper Elite, is contained to reasonably sized levels with a focus on replayability and shooting Hitler in the balls. Kingsley goes on to explain the company's ideal goal of a 2/3, 1/3 split guideline, where 2/3 of Rebellion's projects are brand/sequel games, with the 1/3 of games being experimental titles. Quote, we don't want to hire and fire people all the time, said Kingsley. There's so much job loss going on in the industry, it's frightening at the moment. We haven't had to go in that direction, and we don't want to go in that direction, so we've got to keep a balance. Sven Vinke, the CEO of Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian Studios, who partly made a name for himself by calling out greed in the industry and promoting job security for developers, presented the award for 2024's Game of the Year, Astrobot. Vinke dedicated part of his speech to speaking out against those that prioritize profits rather than games and those who work on them. Quote, I've been fighting with publishers my entire life, and I keep on seeing the same mistakes over and over and over, Vinke proclaimed. It's always the quarterly profits. The only thing that matters is the numbers, end quote. Kingsley reinforced Vinke's statement, saying, quote, it cuts across every industry, end quote. Rebellion's position of being self-funded and not beholden to shareholders has helped them to curtail problems rampant in other studios, and he also shifts part of the blame of mass layoffs to the COVID pandemic. Quote, I think possibly the games industry expanded a bit too fast during COVID, Kingsley said. You know, we had really good times, and everybody was locked in and was playing computer games. And then the correction came, and that correction has been very rapid and sudden, and bloody awful, quite frankly, end quote. Despite this, Kingsley emphasized that senior management fails to focus on the true goal of a game developer. Quote, their business is managing their shareholders' perceptions so that their shares go up. And so making games is sort of a secondary consequence, end quote. This is kind of how we always talk about layoffs, is it's not the developer's fault. They know how to make games. It's the upper management decisions that muddy the waters and make it to where games that otherwise would have been profitable aren't. Most recently, Monolith Studios, they had right out the gates, Jason Schreier specifically talked about this over at Bloomberg, on the Kind of Funny Games podcast, about how the CEO, David Haddad, had basically taken over the company when it was at a high point. And they just made Arkham Knights was coming out, Shadow of Mordor had come out, making this amazing system that people loved, the Nemesis system, and then not capitalizing on that at all, besides making a sequel to Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War. And from that point forward, they basically did nothing. And from everything we know, that upper echelon, being Haddad, prevented there being a clear vision for Monolith to follow, with originally getting their Nemesis-based game that was untitled getting canceled in favor of a Wonder Woman game that they also tried to make the Nemesis system viable in, and then that got rebooted, and before it even got rebooted, I believe, they had changed it to an action-adventure game.
That's what they rebooted it into.
That's what they rebooted it into.
Yeah.
I don't know. It made it seem like they rebooted it, at least from recalling off the top of my
Wonder
head.
Woman had a lineage of development issues. That game was in development hell for a while. But their initial idea was to have the Nemesis system, but work in reverse. So it was more work, like more based around making friendships instead of making enemies, which is an interesting idea. And it just wasn't working, or people over at WB Games or Haddad himself said we need to make something that is more market accessible and what you would expect more from a quote unquote superhero game. So it became more of an action adventure styled game and less of, I would assume, an open world action game with a weird, cool mechanical system in it. To kind of refocus it to Kingsley's point here and to kind of bring it up. WB Games is failing because they are constantly flailing on what they want to do. They're not convicted to any committed to any idea or vision or product, right? So like it just turns into what is the trend chasing of the time? What can we do to capitalize on what the moment is? That's how you get games like Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, right? Instead of getting something that Rocksteady is actually passionate about creating and so forth, which is how Rocksteady became an elite tier studio in the first place.
Yes.
Is they had an idea, they wanted to execute upon it, and if you look at the success of Batman Arkham Asylum, that game comes out around the time of Dark Knight / Dark Knight Rises, somewhere around there. I think it's Dark Knight. Dark Knight is when it starts coming out. There had been Batman Begins video game, or a Batman Begins video game. It wasn't widely except it wasn't very good, right? I played it. I have fond memories of it, but I also remember it being incredibly stiff and kind of stupid.
Movie tie-in.
And the movie tie-in game was high at this point. So for Batman Arkham Asylum to come out while The Dark Knight is ramping up and coming out, and for the two to be completely separate was novel. And that's because Rocksteady had a vision, had an idea of what they wanted to do, executed on it, and 10 years later, what do you know? You have one of the most well-regarded franchises of all time in video games. That's what Kingsley is getting at here is, yes, we should dedicate a massive amount of time to brands that have already been established and IPs that already have fan bases, because that is assured profit. Right?
More assured, at least.
Yeah, more assured, at least. That's a better way to say it. Yeah, more assured, more likely to turn a profit because it's a brand and an IP that people can recognize, and humans just work that way. They want the familiar. We're pattern-focused creatures. We're story-focused creatures. So if we want we try to apply story and narrative to things that don't have story and narrative in real life, right? They like things in nature just happen, but we as human beings want to apply story to it. And so just the innate thing of this is a sequel of any kind, literal or spiritual successor to this thing, we are more attracted to that than to something new because we know it, it's safe, it's already been established as quality, right? But at the same time, to keep moving the industry forward, we do need new things, right? At some point, the human gets bored of eating the same fruit again and again and again and tries to hunt and kill at some point, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just how the evolution of human society happened, right? So it works on that same general theory. The point that Kingsley's making is that it needs to be focused, it needs to be committed, and you need to get the game out, right?
Yeah.
And that's the big problem right now is we are not getting these games out because they are taking so long to develop because we've put this artificial technology war on ourselves through console wars and all these other things, which is a double-edged sword. In some ways, it does help the industry, but in a lot of ways, it hurts the industry as well. And so games became harder to make. They required more time to make, which requires more money to make. And then, wouldn't you know, 5 years later, all the trends have changed, and the people who are profit-focused want to chase the new and not the old. So now, 5 years gets flushed down the drain through layoffs, through a hard reboot of development, through a forced switch into what is today the live service title. You know, years before that, it would have been microtransactions. Years before that, it was DLCs. Years before that, it was the MMO. You know, and it just keeps keeps going down that line. And so now you just have this huge mass of laid off people who don't have anything on their resumes to show for all the work that they've done, and now we are stagnating. Kingsley's right. We need a balance of money and art, you know. And sure, we would all love it if art was the first focus, right? But money is an undeniable a part of this equation. We have to pay respect to that. I like his 2/3 balance here. That makes sense to me.
I do as well, especially because the brand games doesn't mean it's not going to be a quality game.
Yeah.
I think of Embracer, their comment when they were saying they wanted to, what was the word that the CEO specifically used?
They wanted to extort Lord of the Rings.
Yes. And it was just like, when you approach it from that perspective, you could still make a great game because all of that's really reliant on the developers.
Yeah.
And they have the skills to do it.
But skills and time.
And time, yes. But when you approach it directly from that mindset, you'll inevitably have issues with the creation of games. I didn't include it from the article, but one of the things he talked about is he would have, producers basically ask game developers, can't you just have less bugs? Just put less bugs in the game so it's better off. And that's
we need another $30 million for another 3 months of work.
Yes, and it's this idea of, because there's the split between the creative development team and the financial management team, the people who are in charge of trying to serve shareholders, that are trying to maximize profits, they don't really know much in some cases about games at all. They just know how to run a company. And so not understanding that leads to all the shutdowns we've seen. It leads to all of the layoffs we've seen.
And as video games become more established as their own medium,
yes,
we have 100+ years of movie development, and the evolution of what it takes to make a movie. That's again, it doesn't work all the time, but that's still a more well-oiled machine than the video game industry is today. The video games are quickly catching up. They're going to get there faster than they're almost there.
Yeah.
They're going to get there faster than movies took to get there, right? Standing on the shoulders of giants type thing. But you have to acknowledge the differences in production and what it takes to do that, and you have to allow the space for that and the planning for that. And there's just a lot of people who are in these positions who just fundamentally don't understand that because their background is in business, whether that's productions of goods and services or production of entertainment of other mediums. You know what I'm saying?
And we covered a story last week of a new studio that was formed from the co-director of Visions of Mana, Sensquata Games. Either way, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. One of the focuses he wanted to do was more integrate the management team and the development team. So there's not this this dissonance between what exactly the goal is.
Yeah.
Like, for example, clearly Haddad, going back to Warner Bros., since it's the most recent example, he probably canceled what would have been an amazing game, whatever it is they were making, this Untitled one. And clearly it was just, well, I want to make...
The Wonder Woman game?
No, because there was the one before that was going to use the Nemesis system.
The new IP from them.
That got canceled in favor of the Wonder Woman game. And if they just let that game come out, I feel like they probably would have avoided the situation they had with Wonder Woman. They wouldn't have certainly probably rebooted it.
Lots of what ifs there. Lots of what ifs.
But it's a what ifs that it seems like it was entirely driven by the management level, specifically Haddad, because Jason Schreier, going back to him, he talked about how even other members of the executives on the company were like, tired of this guy. What's he doing here? What's his focus? And that lack of focus needs to be laser. Needs to be as pinpoint as possible.
Yeah.
And
you need to have direction. You need to know where you're driving the ship. You cannot be reactive. You have to be proactive. And, sometimes proactivity leads you down the wrong path and you end up losing everybody's jobs, right? Mm-hmm. That just happens. That's why some figures are like more cautious than others, and that's why you get into situations like this where, well, what really is the best route to go things? Not this. Mm-hmm. Clearly not this. And you look at Wonder Woman as by the around the times that that game initially gets greenlit and development moves over into that, you're looking at the lead up into Wonder Woman 1984, which was supposed to be this big giant hit and blow everybody away and be the DC movies version of Iron Man or whatever you want, right? Didn't happen, right? And so now we're years later, Wonder Woman has lost all that good grace that first movie gave us, and Gal Gadot has, people were, I'm not going to say tired of her version of the character, but they were less enraptured with her. People came out of the Justice League movie saying she was the best part of it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, after 1984, we were like, all right, well, these movies, not that great. We were hoping for an evolution here. We didn't get it. And so belief in the IP squandered, and that led to where we are today of like, well, the belief in the IP is gone, so what's the point? Yeah. And that's unfortunate. One, because I think that IP is strong enough to give us something, and it's been just super dormant in terms of...
It.
Huh?
I would have liked it.
The game?
Yeah.
Why?
I like one.
Why?
Because she's cool. She got the
Did you watch the movies?
What?
Did you watch the movies? So you don't like Wonder Woman?
Because I don't like the DC movies because I know they're bad. I'm not a guy who watches superhero movies just because they have I didn't watch Aquaman. I thought he was kind of cool, but I'm not going to watch that movie.
You would like just the most... You're like fucking Aquaman?
Yeah, I like him. He's not my favorite, but he's like, yeah, he's a cool guy.
All right.
What?
I don't know,
Oh,
man.
I see.
I
You
don't
hate
know.
women. That's the point. See? And you can't even deny it. You just sit there and sigh. You just got
We talk about this too much.
What are you talking about?
You bring up like this like women hate thing a little too much. You get a little close. You know what I mean?
talking about?
You're just
No,
getting a
you
little.
do.
You're getting a lot. No, you always bring it up. I love women. Everybody knows I love women.
You were just making fun of me for saying, like,
I'm sorry.
why Wonder Woman would not be cool.
I'm sorry. When you create a character in a video game, what sex is he?
They're a man because I'm a man.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there you
I'm
go.
a man.
What do I do?
Tevin, it's okay if you're trans. The gaming community is accepting of it for the most part. I think for the most part, like you get the loud.
There are circles of acceptance. Yes, yeah. When you get into the more like liberal arts minded people,
but frankly, those people's opinions, not the specifically liberal arts minded people, don't matter.
What are we?
Out.
Wow. Okay.
No.
Just shoot at me. Why don't you?
No. It's not a matter of like whether they think it's right or whether they think it's wrong or that people are going to be accepting. Be who you are. That does go true for anybody watching this. All seriousness.
Nice cleanup.
Well, it is true. My dry humor is, I think, very effective. You agree?
What are we talking about?
Well, we were kind of wrapping up anyway, so
I like what Kingsley's saying here.
Yeah, I do too.
It makes sense to me. I wish it operated more, and we could just keep pointing. I was going to bring up a moderate success that we've seen or based off of expectations, actually, our gargantuan success in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. An example of we had a vision. We started with a new IP. It's no longer a new IP. Now it's an established one. So there's going to be a returning fan base to come in. But we have a vision. We didn't quite execute on it the first time. We got the chance to learn, and we grew. And wouldn't you know it, that's going to go down as one of the best reviewed games of the year. and might end up in Game of the Year conversations.
I feel like it has to be, because this is getting away from the story even more, but that game, and there will be a review eventually after I get done with Kingdom Hearts, tear myself away from Monster Hunter Wilds, but eventually it'll happen. And when it does,
I foresee us playing some Monster Hunter Wilds tonight, buddy. Let me tell you what.
We'll see. But yeah, no, focus, vision. They had it, and they executed on it extremely well, to the point where you took a game that was for a certain crowd, and I would only recommend to a certain crowd, those who like medieval history, and added realism elements into their games, survival elements as well. But now it goes from that to, I'd recommend Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance to everybody. Anybody that owns games, because anybody can, if people can get to the point where they can play FromSoft games as prolifically as they do, they can do Kingdom Come Deliverance.
That's fair.
Yeah.
FromSoft that big? Like, or was Elden Ring a really big flash in the pan?
As in, like, how much, like, in what terms? In terms of how much it made?
Like, will Elden Ring 2 do what Elden Ring 1 did? I don't know if it will.
No, I don't think it will at all. I think things like what we saw were a moment in time.
I sort of see FromSoft games kind of returning back to the sales figures once we're past the Elden Ring wave. We'll see what Night Rain does. But like when we get the next like true FromSoft, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, whatever experience, I see that game doing closer to what they'd done in the past than what they'd done to Elden. Now, still more, because they've gotten this huge boost and a whole new legacy of fans, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, surely they can't do Elden Ring again and again. That was like 60-something million players.
I think I heard something be said that he wasn't planning on it. Miyazaki?
Yeah.
I think I had seen something.
He wasn't
like
planning
that.
on what? No, he's not planning on an Elden Ring 2. I'm just saying I don't see whatever's next doing what Elden Ring did.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I see it getting closer to the numbers of what they had done before. Still more, because Elden Ring brought in all these new fans, but how many of them are going to stick around? I don't know.
And Elden Ring still had the pandemic going on, wrapping up, but that also could have helped influence things.
For sure.
And also being way more sprawling. And people just love getting sent out into worlds. And FromSoft did something special with Elden Ring, where it wasn't holding your hand. You just go out and explore things. You find them yourself. No big waypoints, no obvious direction to go. Just fuck off and do something. And I don't see their next game doing that. And even if it is inevitably an Elden Ring 2, it's not going to be. But theoretically, at that point, people will already have the expectation. It'll sell balls to the wall crazy.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be that same level of hype that it was when it first came out, because it was a new thing.
Speaking of returning to an IP or even giving us any new things at all, let's move on to our final topic of the day.
Your final pick, right? Your final pick.
Yeah, you know how the show runs. Good for you. Good for you. Neil Druckmann says, don't bet on there being a Last of Us Part 3. We are pulling from an IGN article this week because Connor doesn't know how to accumulate news.
This came out today, and I had done all the stuff from last week.
It did not come out today.
It did, yes.
It didn't.
March 5th? Oh, well.
Respawn story came out days before this, too, so I don't know what you're doing.
Because I was thinking Monday would have something good.
Sure. If you're a Last of Us fan anxiously hoping for Rebecca Valentine wrote this, by the way. Thank you, Rebecca Valentine. If you're the Last of Us fan anxiously hoping for word that Naughty Dog is working on a Part 3 video game, I've got some bad news for you. Series creator Neil Druckmann has put a real damper today on any hopes that a Part 3 is in the works or ever will be. Speaking to Variety, Druckmann gave a lengthy interview today, largely centered around The Last of Us TV series. However, at the end, the outlet asked him about the prospect of The Last of Us Part 3. Druckmann responded with quite the shutdown. Quote, "I was waiting for this question," he said, sighing. "I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of Last of Us. This could be it." Of course, the question remains as to if you believe Druckmann or not. Naughty Dog is currently hard at work on Intergalactic, which was announced at the Game Awards last December, and is likely several years away from completion given its lack of any kind of release window. I don't know about that, Valentine. With the studio's interest firmly in space right now, there's no way the team has time for The Last of Us Part 3 anytime soon. It's entirely possible Druckmann is being coy here, or simply that he isn't willing to commit yet. The passage of time could change this response, or he could just be done with it. Who can say? And then they go on to plug Last of Us Season 2 is happening very soon. I'm excited for Last of Us Season 2. They dropped the trailer. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see nothing. Let me experience what you got to say when you say it.
What's going to happen?
Who knows?
I don't know.
I'm actually very curious as to what's going to happen. You know, there's some key things that are going to happen, but when do they happen, Connor? How deep into the season do we get when they happen?
We'll see.
Who knows?
This seems like it has more validity now that he's one of the heads of Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
And he clearly had some kind of even, not exactly gung-ho about making a Last of Us Part 2. It took a little bit before that came into fruition. So I do believe his words here, especially because Intergalactic's aiming to be more than just a single game.
Well, I mean, he has previously said of like, hey, he has an idea for Part 3, which to me, that tells me him having this response now tells me a couple of things, right? Is before he was like, oh, I think I have an idea, right? Very vague, very early in development ideas. So like that tells me either he had an idea and he can't get it to where he wants it to be, and it's just not coming together the way he wants it to be. So he's like, I would rather leave, what internet outrage culture and what you would say, Last of Us Part 2 was heavily, like, critically acclaimed. Like, it was really, really well received, and sold bazooka numbers, much like the first one. So from Druckmann's perspective, I would be like, well, on a hot streak, why, go out on top. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
but and then at the same time, he's also got this TV show going to where if he does choose to continue that story in any way, he can do it through the television show. That's disappointing to me as a game fan, as a fan of the games, as someone who believes that Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson are the definitive versions of these characters. That's disappointing to me. But if he can't figure out how to make it work for a video game, I'm not going to say, hey, go force it. I would rather Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 to be the perceived gold that I see them as. Or it's not that he can't figure it out. It's that the team doesn't really want to do Last of Us anymore. Either are super possible, in which case I would rather respect that and let's move on. I think they're very excited to get Intergalactic out the door. It's their first new IP since The Last of Us first premiered 12 years ago now. And I'm personally excited about it. I think we are going to be in for a real treat with Intergalactic personally. And so, if they want to, put down the baton and say, hey, we're not going to be the Last of Us studio anymore, or maybe we'll pick it up way later in the future. Of course, we keep talking about how long games take to make. With the pace that the television show is going, they're going to reach what Part 3 would be before Part 3 would come out anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, how do we want to tell these stories? I don't know. Like, that's the choice for the creators to make here.
All of those are very valid points. The other aspect is, of course, and this is, as I said, it rings true in the sense that because he's CEO now, or one of the CEOs, he can have a bit more confidence in saying this kind of comment, if he's telling the truth, that is. But he also, being in that role, has to be more money-focused. And so I think a lot of it comes from what Intergalactic is going to do money-wise. Now, I think it's going to be a success. I think the Naughty Dog name alone will carry it. And in a game that seems to be focusing not on a narrative, which you have to, might have soured in some people's mind as being the main focus of a game. They've clearly wanted to play around with game mechanics and game feel. That's been their marketing so far from it. Aside from, of course, Naughty Dog realistic-looking graphics, looking super nice. So if that game sells well, yeah, I think they'll just continue on with the Intergalactic brand. But if for some reason it doesn't sell well, I think The Last of Us Part 3 is going to be looking pretty enticing at that point. But even then, they already did it with Last of Us 1. They're at some point going to make a remake of Last of Us Part 2, I think. And in the future, by the time Intergalactic's already kind of gone through even a second game by that point. I'm saying like far off into the future. So
I disagree with you on a remake of Part 2.
You do?
I don't see the reason why. I mean, now granted, you could make the argument we didn't see the reason why for Part 1, but there was a visual fidelity that a gap in visuals that was increasing. And Part 2 is too new. The real reason they did Part 1 is for the show. so that people could play a new version of the game on PlayStation 5 for the show. They also were able to add all the accessibility features that they developed during Part 2's development, and they were able to decrease the graphical gap between the two games, right? And so we've already got a Last of Us Part 2 remaster. For what purpose would you remake Last of Us Part 2? It's a perfect 2-pack right now.
Oh, I'm only saying that for money, not from anything other than that. Which is why they would look at that and say, well, we need some money. This is only in the context of their new games don't do all that great. I don't even think I have no doubt that they are not thinking about that at all as it stands right now. But again, technology, I don't know how it's going to
full-blown
progress.
remake, I just don't see.
Sure.
Ports, remasters, again, sure, like a complete, here's The Last of Us box, and it's both games in one. Like, I could see that. I could see a remake of Part 1 again with actual gameplay advancements. This time around than in Part 2. You know what I'm saying? Part 2 just doesn't make sense to me.
Not to me either. But again, I'm not the one who makes these kinds of decisions. Maybe someone has a say in things and wants more Last of Us games so they can make money for whatever fucking, I don't know, basically is what I'm saying. But these are all just possibilities. I think Intergalactic's going to do well, though, and play well.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
It feels like, sort of like what we were talking about in our last topic. It feels like they have a vision.
Yeah.
And Naughty Dog's very good at executing on a vision when they have one.
Yeah.
Throughout all of their games, they've, like, ever since Uncharted on, they've just been great at executing on vision, And I have no doubt Intergalactic is going to be great. I'm very, very excited for it personally. I'm just excited for something new from Naughty Dog personally.
Yeah.
I still, like, I play around as a fan theory with what a Last of Us Part 3 could be. I have, my own little fan story that I would hope to see and see and all that. I do think there is I think there's more space for a Part 3 than there was for Part 2. And I personally, I believe Part 2 is stronger than Part 1. Not by much, but I just think it generally is. Trilogies are just so nice. People like a good trilogy.
Round number.
And I think, it just feels more round than 2. 2 seems too small. 3 seems, it's just right, And so, I would like to see a Part 3. I also think, well, you bring up, he's CEO, he has a better idea of things. He does have a better idea of these things, right? But this is still so non-definitive. Because I guarantee you, if Intergalactic doesn't become the greatest hit in Naughty Dog's history, they're going back to that Last of Us well. I think his previous comments alluded too heavily into we are going to make a Part 3.
Yeah.
And so I think he's just kind of bringing that back a little bit to just kind of bring the expectations back, because they were never in the Part 3 is happening for sure boat. And I think that's where fans had taken it to. And now we're just in a place of, it's just it may happen. It may not. I don't know. We're still we are brainstorming some ideas, and we are debating on if we even want to make a video game about it, or if we just want to take the television show as our route now. I think that's a mistake. It's the future. There's a million different paths we could enter. There's only a couple of paths that you can enter, ladies and gentlemen, and that is whether or not you liked this content, whether you want to see more of it. If you do, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you drop a comment down below on whether or not we are full of bullshit or not. Let me know.
Please.
Call
us the nastiest names you can think of.
Well,
in the comment section.
Well, hold on.
Make us tougher.
I got feelings.
You do, but not for these people.
Okay, but you don't even read the comments.
I do. Now I have started doing it.
Oh, you've started doing it. Good for you.
I should start interacting with. I have.
I stopped seeing you interact a time or two. It happens. So, anyways, make sure you hit the like, you subscribe, and you follow us all on the social medias and different platforms for more. Links are in the description down below. And remember, you can get this show every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@TwoPennyGames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Follow us on Twitch so that you can watch us record all of our shows live. And until next time, have a great time. Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Bye, everybody.